Hi, my name is Jim, and I have a theory about the two witnesses, and I believe that they are here. And the reason why I do is I want to share my knowledge with you. In Revelations 11 1 through 12, it says, "And there was given me a reed like unto a rod, and the angel stood, saying, Rise and measure the temple of God, and the altar, and them that worship therein." So there's people in this temple. Okay. "But the court which is without the temple leave out and measure it not, for it is given unto the Gentiles. And the holy city shall they tread underfoot for 3.5 years." Okay, so you got a group of people in the temple and a group of people outside of the temple. Okay. "And I will give power unto my two witnesses, and they shall prophesy 1,260 days, 3.5 years, clothed in sackcloth." So the way that I read it is that he just said what the two witnesses are: Christian Jews, Christian Gentiles. Okay, that's what I say. Okay, and the reason why I say that is in Matthew 24:14. "And this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world for a witness unto all nations, and then shall the end come." So we Christians need to witness to people throughout the whole world before the end can come. And we've done it. We have done it. Every nation, every tribe, every island have been witnessed that there is Jesus, and that Jesus came and died and for our sins. Throughout the whole world, we witnessed to them, not the two witnesses, two people. Okay, Acts 10:39. "And we are witnesses of all things which he did, both in the land of the Jews and in Jerusalem, whom they slew and hanged on a tree." Luke 24:46 through 48. "And he said unto them, Thus it is written, and thus behooved Christ to suffer and to rise from the dead the third day. And the repentance and remission of sins should be preached in his name among all nations, beginning in Jerusalem." So that had to been preached, witnessed throughout the whole world, to all the nations. 48. "And ye are witnesses of these things." Ye, you are witnesses of these things. And you need to share your knowledge. Okay. Daniel 9:27. "And he shall confirm a covenant with many for 1 week, and in the midst of the week he shall cause the sacrifice and offering to cease, and for the overspreading of abomination he shall make it desolate, even unto the consumption, and that determined shall be poured upon the desolate." Okay, so this is Daniel, and he's talking about 1 week, and we have determined that that week is the week of tribulation. And we have determined that in the midst of the week is when the Antichrist is going to step up. And then the Great Tribulation is going to continue from that moment. Now, I believe that this week is two meanings. One meaning is with Jesus. I believe that his ministry started after he got baptized. So then you go 3.5 years after he is baptized. His preaching lasted 3.5 years, and then he died. And when he died, that eliminated the sacrificing of animals, because the tent was ripped to expose the most holy place. So no more sacrificing animals. So that eliminated because of Jesus dying in 3.5 years. Okay. So now we have a covenant that was, a covenant is an agreement that was made. So I believe that the agreement was that the Jews had 7 years to accept Jesus. They didn't the 3.5 years Jesus died. Now they have 3.5 years to accept Jesus. They didn't do it. So God decided, well, if you're not going to accept Jesus, I'm going to go to the people that will. It's the Gentiles. I'm going to go to the Gentiles. And I'm going to graft them in so that they can have every right and all the benefits that the Jews had. Okay, so now, the 3.5 years. This is dealing with Peter and Cornelius. Peter received this dream, and pretty much everybody knows about this dream. It's the sheet lower down with all the animals on it. And God told Peter to eat them. And these were unclean animals. Peter says to God, oh, no way, because I've never in my life have eaten any unclean animals. So God sends another dream, same thing. Peter says, no. Then God says to Peter, you are not to call anything unclean that I have made clean. Then God gives him this vision, and he says to him, okay, you're going to have 3 people come to your door, knock on your door, and you are to go with them. Easy enough. Peter, okay, yeah, sure. So they knock on the door. There's 3 men, but they're Gentiles. Jews do not associate themselves with the Gentiles. But God told them, and sure enough, there's 3 men. I better go with them. So he does. Now, these 3 men came from Cornelius. Cornelius was a God-fearing man, and he wanted to know more. And God told Cornelius, you send 3 men to go get Peter, and then he will come back and share the gospel with you. Wow, that's pretty. So Cornelius did. He sent his 3 men to go get Peter. So now Cornelius knows that Peter's coming and share the gospel. So Cornelius went and got all his friends and family into this house waiting for Peter. Peter comes, goes in the house. Peter comes out of the house, and he is greeted by other Jews. In Acts 10:28, the Jews asked him, what are you doing? Peter says to him, and he said unto them, you know how that it is unlawful thing for a man that is a Jew to keep company or come unto one another's nation. But God has shown me that I should not call any man common or unclean. So Peter interpreted the dream. It was a vision. It was he interpreted it. He knew what God's message was. And the key thing is that God says, everything that I have made clean, you are not to call unclean. Now, most people take this story or this vision of the sheep lowering down with the animals means, well, we can now eat anything we want. Wrong. God said, everything that I have made clean, you are not to call unclean. God didn't make pigs clean. He made them unclean. He made clean animals and unclean animals. And the unclean animals are to pick up and clean up after us. They're scavengers, they're vultures. And that's the unclean animals. We're not to eat them. So better, and Peter figured it out because he was calling the the Gentiles unclean, common, and we're not supposed to associate with them. Okay, so now the gospel starts at the Gentiles. Right, okay. All right, good. In Revelations 11:4, these are the 2 olive trees the two witnesses, where he's describing the two witnesses. These are two olive trees and the two candlesticks standing before the God of the earth. The olive trees. In Zechariah 4:11 and 14. Then answered I and said unto him, what are these two olive trees upon the right side of the candlestick and upon the left side thereof? Then he said, these are the two anointed ones. Oh. That stand by the Lord of the whole earth. So, the whole earth are the anointed ones throughout the whole earth. Could the anointed ones be one guy over here and one guy over there? No, it's the whole earth. Anointed ones. All the anointed ones. All the Christians. Okay. Romans 11:17. And if some of the branches are broken off, and thou being a wild olive tree, were grafted in among them, and with them partakest of the root and fatness of the olive tree. The olive tree. Okay, let's say that this tree is pure people, Christians, strong Christian people, a group of them, Jews. Okay, Jews. So we got an olive tree. Now, because of the Jews not accepting Jesus, the Gentiles are grafted in. And by being grafted in, they receive everything from that olive tree. So you got these grafted. Okay, so you got two trees. You got one tree that is pure olive tree. This other tree is a wild tree with all the grafts ins of the Gentiles. So now we got Christian Jews, Christian Gentiles, two witnesses. In Revelations 1:20, the mystery of the seven stars and the mystery of the seven stars which thou showest in my right hand, and the seven golden candlesticks. The seven stars are the angels of the seven churches, and the seven candlesticks which thou showest are the seven churches. So, candlesticks represents a church. They have a light. They shine the light, life. You actually had seven churches in the book of Revelations. They were all Christians, but they're all different groups of people, different churches. And he pointed out the good things and the bad things about each of the churches. So, the candlesticks to represent churches, Christian Jews, Christian Gentiles. Okay, so now we're in Revelations 11:5. We're dealing with the two witnesses. If any man will hurt them, the fire proceedeth out of their mouth and devour their enemies. And if any man will hurt them, he must be manned to be killed. These have power to shut heaven and rain not in the days that prophesy, and one power over waters to turn them to blood, and to smite the earth with all plagues as often as they will. And when they shall have finished their testimony, the beast that ascendeth out of the bottomless pit. Okay, now this is okay. We're dealing with the two witnesses, and now we're dealing with ascended out of the bottomless pit, made war with them, and shall overcome them and kill them. Okay, so the two witnesses are to witness for 3.5 years, and then they're going to be killed. Isn't that the same as Daniel? The tribulation? Okay, we got the tribulation, 7 years. We got 7 years with the two witnesses. 3.5 years, boom, they're dead. Okay, and who does it? The person that ascended out of the bottomless pit. I would say the devil, maybe. Okay, now, okay, hang on now. And their dead bodies shall lie in the street of the great city, which spiritually is called Sodom and Egypt. Sodom and Egypt. Okay, you got Israel, right? And you got Egypt. Egypt is always considered as Gentile and out of the away from the world, a different nation. Two witnesses. Okay, and where also our Lord was crucified. And they of the people in kindreds and tongues and nations shall see their dead bodies 3 days and a half, and shall not suffer their dead bodies to be put in graves. Okay, and they that dwell upon the earth shall rejoice, okay, over them, and make merry, and shall send gift one to another, because these two prophets tormented them that dealt on the earth. Okay, let's imagine that the two witnesses are two people, and they need to prophesy throughout the whole world. And you believe, well, they can, because we have satellites and internet, and so they can preach throughout the whole world. But the key word is tormented. If I was home relaxing and I turn on the TV and Moses comes on the screen and starts preaching, saying, do you believe in Jesus? Boom. That's it. I don't have to listen anymore. I am not tormented. I don't have to, and I won't. But if you, as a non-believer, go out of the house and you go up to your neighbor and say, hey, how you doing? And he says, hey, have you heard about Jesus? Do you believe in Jesus? And is your family, I see that you don't go to church. And the guy says, shut up. I don't want to hear it anymore. And by the way, mow your lawn. So that same guy, he goes to work. He's at work, and a coworker comes up to him and says, you know, our church is having a get-together, and we're having a Bible study, and we would really love to have you come, and so you can learn about Jesus, and you know, because if you don't believe in Jesus, you're going to die, and I don't want to hear it anymore. Leave me alone. So the same guy, he has a Thanksgiving get-together with all his family. They decide they're going to pray for the meal. So they do. And you don't bow your head, you don't close your eyes, you don't do nothing. I don't have to, and I'm not going to. So someone says, well, I notice you don't pray. No, I don't. Why not? Well, I don't believe. You don't believe? Why don't you believe? Because of this and this and this. Let me show you. Let me get the Bible, and I will show you where it says this and this. Now, that's being tormented. Okay, so they're being tormented. Okay, after 3 days and a half, the Spirit of life from God entered into them, and they stood upon their feet, and great fear fell upon them which saw them. Okay, let's go back to Daniel's week. They're witnessing for 3.5 years. They're killed for 3.5 years. Now, they're not going to all die that day, but that's the day they start dying in the whole world. Okay, and after 3 days and a half, the Spirit of God entered into them, and they stood upon their feet, and great fear fell upon them. So they're going to be dying, being killed. The Antichrist is going to be killing all these Christians throughout these 3.5 years. After the 3.5 years, Jesus comes and raises up his two witnesses. Christian Jews, Christian Gentiles. There's none other. You're either a Jew or a Gentile. It's nothing else. Christian Jews, Christian Gentiles raised up at the last days. Now the big thing that people don't see. Okay, after 3.5 days, the Spirit of life from God entered into them. Okay, the Spirit of life. Okay, that's the same Spirit that God gave to Adam to give him life, the Spirit of life. I'm giving you the Spirit. During Jesus' time, the people that died, and the Spirit of life went back into them, and the person came alive again, the Spirit of life. Jesus on the cross gave up his Spirit of life, and he died. Okay, it's the Spirit of life. It doesn't say, and this would be the perfect place to put it, it does not say that the soul went back into the body. It doesn't. It says the Spirit of life. That's the only reason why we're alive, is that we have a Spirit of life in us, and it can be removed. Okay. Okay, enter into them and stood on their feet, and great fear fell upon them which saw them. Okay, great fear, that would be the people gnawing at their teeth. Great fear, because they see what's happening. Okay, 12. And they heard a great voice from heaven saying unto them, Come up hither. And they ascended up to heaven in a cloud, and their enemies beheld them. Now, few years ago, I made a video, and the video was the similarities between a Jewish wedding and Jesus' wedding. And I think I only received 200 views, something like that. But what's strange about that, on what they just said in 12, is that Jesus is up in the sky, and then the two witnesses, Christian Jews, Christian Gentiles, are brought up to him. Now, in a Jewish wedding, they have traditions, and one tradition is that they take the groom, put him in a chair, and they raise him up in the sky. And then they take the bride, put her in the chair, raise her up, go around the groom, and then bring her to him. Isn't that something? The similarity it's a big picture, you know. But the Jews don't associate it or can't figure it out. They just do it because, well, that's tradition. They don't know why. They just do it. All right, now we want to go into the feast days. There are 7 feast days on which God has given to his people that must be followed every year. And they are Passover, unleavened bread, first fruits, Feast of Weeks, Feast of Trumpets, Feast of Atonement, and the Feast of Tabernacles. Now, in Leviticus 23:5, in the 14th day of the first month at evening is the Lord's Passover. Now, the first Passover was, the Jews were in Egypt as slaves. God wanted to save them. So he got Moses and his brother Aaron to go into Egypt to Pharaoh, the leader of Egypt, to release his people so that they could worship God. Pharaoh refused to allow that. So then, because of him refusing, God had plagues hit Pharaoh and his people. Now, and Pharaoh refused to release them, even after all the plagues, except the last plague. The last plague is Moses told Pharaoh, he says, okay, if you don't release my people, every firstborn of every living thing is going to die on this day. Pharaoh didn't believe him. So Moses goes to the people, the Israelites, and says to them, on this day is very special. You need to do this to prepare for this day. And what you need to do is that you need to go into your flock of sheep, find a lamb that's a year or younger, bring it into your house for 3.5 days. After 3.5 days, you are to slaughter it, take the blood from the lamb, and pour it on your header of your door and your side beam of your door. And then the angel of death going by will see the blood on your door and pass over your house. So you don't have to worry about your firstborn dying. Okay, now, my grandfather had sheep, and I spent a lot of time with my grandpa. And there was times where I would spend weeks with him in the summertime, and I would do all the chores with these sheep and stuff. Well, a lot of times a ewe will have twins, and sometimes the ewe wouldn't accept both of them. She would feed one, but not the other. So my grandfather would have to take that one and bring it into the house, and we'd have to bottle feed it. The thing of it is that when you separate them young lambs from the herd or flock, that they start whining, and it's loud. But if you give it attention, it'll calm down. So you would have to constantly attend to this poor little lamb. And there was one time that I absolutely could not sleep. That lamb was making all kinds of racket. And I actually ended up sleeping with the lamb. And I did. I fell asleep. The lamb fell asleep. And it was all good. So now, Moses is telling these people to take this young lamb and have him in the house for 3.5 days. Isn't that the same as Jesus? Jesus was a sacrificial lamb. This is a sacrificial lamb. 3.5 days. So for this 3.5 days that this lamb is in your house, you end up liking this lamb, getting it attracted to this lamb. You're probably named it and pet it and begin to like it and even love the lamb that you have in your house. Oh, isn't it cute? And okay, and now you got to kill it. So that's the same thing with Jesus. Jesus was here for 3.5 years. We begin to love him, and then he's dead. Okay, do you understand the similarities? Because God could have, well, okay. The Bible. All right, the rich man and Lazarus. Everybody knows that story, the rich man and Lazarus, and the rich man is in so-called hell, and he's telling Abraham, he said, Master Abraham, can you have Lazarus go and tell my brothers that this is really true, that this is going to happen? And Abraham says to him, no, I have given them Moses and the prophets, and it's up to them to find the truth. What has God given us? Moses and the prophets, and we call it the Bible. So God has given the Bible to us, for us to figure it out. If you don't figure it out, oh well, that's it. I've given you the choice. It's up to you. Now, God could have totally rewritten the Bible and made it so clear that there is no question about it. He could have showed himself to us, and then we, oh yeah, I believe you, and I have this book, and I'm going to follow that. But no, he doesn't show himself, and the Bible is a mystery. It is a big puzzle. And the puzzle is to figure out what the puzzle is, you got to take all the pieces and you got to put it together. And where the big question is when the piece doesn't fit, you don't force it to fit. It should fit. Everything should fit and make sense. Okay, okay, so all through the Bible, pictures like the Passover. The first Passover is a picture of Jesus and the end days. That's a picture. So we got all these pictures throughout the Old Testament leading towards Jesus, showing Jesus, giving an idea of Jesus and how Jesus is going to die and everything. It's pictures, okay? Now, I was brought up in an atheist family, but as a child, I had a feeling of this power outside of me. It was strange. It was like a guardian angel, that if I was doing something that I shouldn't be doing, then this guardian angel would say, don't do that. And sometimes I wouldn't listen. And I would find out, oh yeah, he was right. I shouldn't have done that. Anyway, that's a longer story. But I knew I had this feeling, but you talk to other people and they don't have any feeling like that. And so I just kept to myself about it. But when I was 13, I found out what that power was. It was associated with God. Oh my. That's another story I'd really love to share with you. But so then I found out that there really is a God, and God really has these spirits that help us. I found that out, okay, when I was 13. Then I received the Holy Spirit when I was 18. Oh, what an experience that was. So now I get married and I have kids, and I'm, I think, 23, 24, something like that. And I wanted my kids to be brought up knowing about God, and so I thought we should find a church. So you go to a church and you listen to them, and they say, we're the only ones going to heaven. So, sweet, this must be the one. That's the one I want. But you go down the road to a different church, and they have a different doctrine, different beliefs, and they say, we're the only ones going to heaven. So now I'm totally confused. I thought, now how am I going to find that out? How am I going to figure out which church is the right church? So I thought, the only way is to read the Bible. So I did. I bought a Bible and I started reading from page 1 all the way to the end. And after I got done, I was more confused than before, because the things that I interpreted from the Bible was different than all the people that I've associated with. And I would go to like co-workers and other people that I knew were religious, like deacons of the church even, and I would bring up different points, and I would say, oh, I really need help because I'm misinterpreting this Bible really bad because I think it's this. And they said, oh no, you're wrong. And I said, oh good, I'm really glad you're saying that. So show me where. They couldn't. They would bring up verses and they would say this and that and go from here to there and read this. But it doesn't make sense. No, it doesn't all fit. It doesn't. If you believe it this way, then that makes this wrong. Like there would be 12 verses that say one thing, and they have one verse that says this. And they say, right there. So then you're saying that all these other ones, all these are wrong? It sounds pretty clear to me. And it's not just a guy saying it. This is what Jesus said. Anyway, so I'm confused. And there was one thing when I was reading the Bible that really confused me was with Moses. Okay, Moses and God were really good together. Moses loved God and God loved Moses, and Moses did so much for God and for the Gentiles. It's amazing what he put himself, it's amazing what he done for God. So Moses is on Mount Sinai, and the Israelites come to him and says, oh, we don't have any water, we need water. So Moses goes to God and says, my people need water. What am I going to do? God says, okay, get your staff, and I'm going to lead you to a rock. Okay. Gets to the rock. He says, okay, you hit that rock with your staff, and out water will flow. Okay. He does it. The rock splits, and water flows out. Now, many years ago, because I like doing research and digging into things, well, anyway, I found this guy called Ron Wyatt, and he found the real Mount Sinai. And on Mount Sinai, way up in the mountain, was this massive rock. And this massive rock was split right in two. And when you're at where the rock is, you can look down and see total erosion going down the hill, like it was water that eroded all the way down into the valley. So we believe that that was the rock that Moses hit. Okay. So now everything is fine, and then the Israelites come to Moses and saying, well, the rock's not flowing water anymore. We need water. So Moses goes to God, and God tells him, okay, go to the rock, and you talk to the rock, and water will flow out. Moses goes to the rock, hits it with his staff. God's pissed. How dare you go against me, what I say? And I'm thinking, oh, and he says, because of what you've done, you are not able to go into the promised land, that you're leading all these people to go to this great, wonderful place, and you're not going to be able to do it. It's like, okay, I'm giving you all the recipe to build this cake. You make this cake, but you can't eat it. How terrible. Well, from reading that, it's like, man, God, I don't understand this at all. That doesn't make, things have to make sense. That doesn't make sense. Did he hurt the staff by hitting the rock? No, because he did the same thing earlier and it didn't hurt the staff. Did the rock get hurt? No, it's a rock. But what I was saying was God always does pictures, and you got to figure out the picture. You got to figure out the representation of what he is showing you, what it means. Okay. So this was years and years later that finally I figured it out. And that is, okay, Jesus is the rock. Jesus says, I am the rock. Okay, Jesus is the rock. Jesus is killed, struck, like with a staff, he is killed. The rock splits. And out flows living water. Jesus told the apostles, I have to go and die so that the Holy Spirit, the living water, can come. He says, I have to leave, die, so that the Holy Spirit can come. The rock has to die. So now, God had this picture. Moses goes and kills the rock, and out flows living water. Great picture. The water stops. Moses goes, and he's supposed to talk to the rock, but he hits it. That ruins his picture, because Jesus doesn't die twice, only once. So, anyway, so that's what I'm saying about pictures, and you got to figure it out. And it's up to us to figure it out. Okay, so now the feast. Leviticus 23:6 7 days you eat unleavened bread. That's the feast of unleavened bread. 7 days you are not to eat leaven. Leaven is yeast. So when you make bread, if you put yeast into it, the bread will rise. And then you have a loaf. For some reason, God is telling his people, you must go a whole week with no leaven. You are to go through your house and remove every bit of leaven that you have in your house, and not to eat leaven for a week. Okay, what do we know about weeks? What do we know about 7 days, 7 years? Now, for 7 years, we should not have leaven. Okay, what is leaven? Okay, Galatians 5:9. A little leaven leaveneth the whole lump. If you put a little yeast into your dough, the whole dough will become leavened. All right. Matthew 16:12. Then understood they how that he bade them not beware of leaven of the bread, but of the doctrine of the Pharisees and Sadducees. This is Jesus talking to the apostles, and he says, be aware of leaven. And the apostles figured, be aware of leaven, bread, well, I don't know. So what God is saying is that a little leaven. So the doctrine of the Pharisees and Sadducees is their belief, their understanding. So the Pharisees and Sadducees, their doctrine is wrong. Okay, wrong. And if you allow a little bit of their wrong or their doctrine to come into your group, the whole group is going to be leavened, unclean. You see what Jesus is warning them of? Do not allow their doctrine to come into your belief. You have a belief, don't let their interfere with your belief, or it's going to be damaged. Okay, on the day of Pentecost and Shavuot, that would be the first fruit. No, Feast of Weeks, sorry. Feast of Weeks, okay. On that day is when Moses gave the law and the commandments to the Israelites. On that day, the Feast of Weeks. Feast of Weeks is 50 days after Passover. Okay. Leviticus 23:15 through 20. And ye shall count unto you from the morrow after the Sabbath, from the day that you brought the sheaf of the wave offering, 7 Sabbaths shall be complete. Even unto the morrow after the 7th Sabbath shall you number 50 days, and shall offer a new meat. Okay, new meat, offering unto the Lord. Okay, now Moses gave the law to the Israelites. New meat, new belief, a new acceptance. You need to accept, you believe this. This is new meat. Okay. You shall bring out of your, You shall bring out of your habitation 2 wave loaves of 2/10 deals. They shall be of fine flour. They shall be baked with leaven. Now, this is the only time that God allows any leaven in anything. Like your communion. your communion bread is not to have leaven in it. Other ceremonies, no leaven. Okay. But for some reason, this time, you are to put leaven in it. Okay. Shall be baked with leaven, and are the first fruits unto the Lord. Then you shall sacrifice one kid of the goats for a sin offering, and 2 lambs of the first year for a sacrifice of peace offerings. And the priest shall wave them with the bread of the first fruits for a wave offering before the Lord with the 2 lambs. They shall be holy to the Lord for the priest. Okay, let's get this picture. We got a picture coming again. Okay, we got 2 loaves. We got a loaf, one loaf over here, screened flour, fine flour. I mean, to screen it, you have to screen it like 3 times, different screens to filter this out. So this is pure flour. Okay. Now let's imagine, because Jesus saying, don't allow leaven into your dough, your group. Okay, these are fine people, the very elect. Okay, great people, great Christian people. You screened, like you go in and you screen 20 churches and you pick out the best. This is the best. Okay, these are the best, the very elect. But you put leaven in it, a new doctrine. And these very elect are convinced or accept leaven. They accept the leaven. So now the whole loaf or dough is corrupt. Now you have another group, fine flour, very elect Jews. They allow this doctrine to come in to their belief. So now you got 2 loaves of unrighteous bread. 2 of them. Used to be good Christian Jews, used to be good Christian Gentiles. Now you got 2 loaves. Now who is doing this? New meat. This is new meat, a new belief, a new understanding. This is a new doctrine, leaven, new meat. So now this new meat, let's say that this is Satan coming out of the pit. For 3.5 years, he's coming out of the pit. He's the one that has taken these loaves. All right, he's got 2 loaves. Now he's got 2 lambs that he's going to sacrifice. Why 2? Always before it's 1. Jesus was 1 lamb. But now you got 2 lambs. Could they be 2 witnesses? Christian Jews, Christian Gentiles. And he slaughters them, kills them. Then he takes these 2 lambs, 2 loaves of bread, and does a wave offering to God. It's like, to God. These 2 witnesses, new meat, are us. Okay. Now, I really want to thank you for watching the whole video. I also want to say that this is my theory, and if you have proof that I'm wrong, I'm more than willing to be convinced. If you can convince me that I'm wrong, go for it. I would love it. I would love to hear from you. And I really ask that you do read the Bible, but read it in a way of, this is a puzzle. Let's figure this out. And I actually do have other puzzle pieces that I would like to share with you but only if I get enough of people that like my video. Thumbs up. If you don't like my video, there's no way that I'm going to waste my time telling you things that are going to upset you. So anyway, I want to, God bless you, and I want to hope that everything goes well with you, and hopefully that you will be prepared for what's to come. And what's to come is the Antichrist killing his two witnesses. So hold firm. Do not become that flour that allows yeast to come in. You do not want to do that. You want to stand firm with your belief. Okay? So God bless you. That's it. Bye-bye.